Today, we're going to talk about Qantas Flight 32. This is the incredible story of a flight where things went so spectacularly wrong that the computers, the very systems designed to save it, were completely useless. It's a gripping story about how human skill, teamwork, and, well, a really smart change in thinking saved 469 people from an absolute catastrophe.
Just let this sink in for a second. The captain of the world's largest passenger plane, at the height of a crisis, says this. His mental model, his entire understanding of how this incredibly complex machine was supposed to work, just shattered. That's the moment he knew he was in completely uncharted territory.
So how on earth did he get to that point? Well, to get it, we've got to go back to the beginning, on what was supposed to be just another totally normal day at the office.
Okay, so picture this. November 4th, 2010. We've got Qantas Flight 32, a massive Airbus A380, heading from Singapore to Sydney. And you have to understand the scale here. This isn't just any plane. It's one of the biggest, most advanced jets in the sky with 469 souls on board. The stakes, literally, couldn't be higher.
They're barely 4 minutes in the air when, bam, a loud bang shatters the calm. But this isn't just an engine failure. It's a catastrophic, uncommanded explosion. The captain said it was louder than anything he'd ever experienced, even in a simulator. Right away, they knew this wasn't in the manual.
And believe it or not, that massive explosion, that was just the beginning. The real problem, the thing that almost brought them down, was what happened next. A complete and total information overload that swamped the entire crew.
In that initial moment of pure chaos, their training kicked in. And it all comes down to this simple mantra: aviate, navigate, communicate. First things first, you fly the airplane. Don't let the shock paralyze you. Then, you navigate. Get control, point it somewhere safe. And only then, once you're stable, do you communicate and tell people what's going on. It's a simple hierarchy that brought a bit of order to an insane situation.
Now, modern jets have a system called ECAM. Think of it as the plane's brain. It's supposed to help pilots by telling them what's wrong and giving them the right checklist to fix it. It's supposed to be your best friend. But on QF32, their best friend had a total meltdown.
To give you an idea of how bad things were, look at this. The A380 has 22 major systems. Of those, 21 were either damaged or completely degraded. The only thing working perfectly? The passenger oxygen system. And, thankfully they were below 10,000 feet, so they didn't even need it.
And because of all that damage, the ECAM system just went wild. It started throwing checklists at the crew. Not one, not two, over 180. I mean, think about that. In a high-stakes simulator, a pilot might train for 4 checklists at most. They were facing more than 25 times that, for real.
This chart really shows you just how crippled this plane was. We're talking 95% of its systems compromised. Look at the details. They had about a third of their roll control, less than half their brakes, less than half their electrics. They were flying a fundamentally broken aircraft.
And listen to how the captain describes it. It wasn't just a list on a screen. It was a sensory assault. Constant alarms, flashing lights, all designed to get your attention. It was so overwhelming, it was almost impossible to think. They literally called it ECAM Armageddon.
So, how do you come back from that? How do you go from being totally overwhelmed to actually getting control of the situation? This, right here, was the turning point. It's where human brains started to beat the machine.
First, the captain did something that wasn't even in the commercial airline playbook. He pulled a procedure from his old military days called a control check. He basically needed to test the plane out, up at a safe altitude, to figure out how slowly he could fly it before it would fall out of the sky. A brilliant move that probably saved them from losing control during the landing.
But the real game changer, it was a mental shift. The crew was just drowning, looking at this massive, glass-half-empty list of everything that was broken. So, inspired by what NASA did during Apollo 13, the captain decided to flip the script. He told everyone, "Stop telling me what's broken. Start telling me what we have left that still works."
And that simple question changed everything. By focusing on what was working, they realized they had wings, they had some flight controls, and crucially, they had fuel. And in aviation, there's this old saying, fuel gives you time, and time gives you options. They had over 2 hours of fuel. That gave them the breathing room they desperately needed to think. Okay, so they've got a new mindset, they have a better handle on the plane, but now they face the final boss, landing this overweight, barely controllable behemoth.
And at this point, they were flying blind.
They plugged a dozen of the biggest failures into the landing computer, the system that's supposed to calculate all this for them, and the computer basically just threw up its hands and quit. It couldn't handle a crisis this complex. Technology had officially reached its limit.
So without the computer, the captain faced an impossible choice. He could do a hard landing to stop short, but that might shatter the busted landing gear. Or he could do a soft landing, but they might run out of runway and crash off the end. It was a razor's edge decision. In the end, he went for a non-standard technique to soften the touchdown at the last second, and it worked.
But they touch down and you think, okay, we're safe. Nope, not even close. On the ground, they realize they have new nightmares to deal with. There are tons of jet fuel pouring out of the wing, pooling right next to brakes that are glowing red hot. Oh, and engine number 1, it wouldn't shut down. The explosion had cut all the wires. Through all this, you've got to remember the 469 passengers. How do you keep them calm? The captain used a simple but powerful technique called a NITS briefing. He clearly explained the nature of the problem, his intentions, the time it would take, and what he needed from them. That kind of clear, honest talk didn't create panic. It turned 469 victims into 469 partners.
So why is this story so important, even for those of us who aren't pilots? Let's break down the real lessons that came out of that cockpit.
It really all comes down to the human element. This whole crisis proved that deep experience, that lifetime of learning, is totally irreplaceable when the unexpected happens. It proved that a great team can solve a problem that no single person or computer ever could. And it proved that clear, calm communication is everything in a crisis.
And that brings us to the final, most powerful point of all. QF32 is the ultimate argument for why we always need skilled, experienced humans in the loop. Because when our amazing technology fails in ways that nobody could have predicted, it's our human ability to think, to adapt, and to work together that truly saves the day.